In this video, we're going to talk about the next very, very important topic, and that's why UCAT is so challenging. And that is probably why you're here watching this video, coming onto our website and trying to look for more information about just what the UCAT is, and hopefully you'll get your head around it. So in this particular video, I'll be focusing on why UCAT is so challenging. So the very first reason is because the skills that are required to solve the UCAT is unlike any other skill you've previously acquired. So let's take a few more steps back and understand first and foremost that UCAT is just a unique test in that compared to most of the exams that you have experience with, which are knowledge-based, it's just the ability to recall facts, essentially. You might want to do a little bit with them, depending on the questions that you get in your final exams at school, but not much more, right? UCAT is a skill-based test, which is all about the process, all about the steps, all about the skill, all about that working, to deduce that final answer, similar to what we have with math. But the thing with UCAT is that the particular skill, evidence-based decision making, in terms of how it needs to be adapted to suit the demands of the UCAT questions, is really particular. So without going into too much detail yet, you can definitely have a look at some dissection videos later on in this resource page so that you can see what these skills look like. You'll realize that these skills are anything but simple, right? They're very, very technical, and they're very, very particular in that, across a line of working, well, not a line of working, across lines of working, that even if you make one little mistake, that could be the reason as to why you get a question wrong. So this whole deductive process in finding evidence, understanding it, understanding what the question stem wants from you, and then systematically concluding the answer options, that in itself is very unique. So that's the first challenge, to actually find these skill sets that match what the questions demand. Right. The second major challenge is actually using these skills that you've acquired, these really strange and these very complex, unique skills you've acquired. And that's because you don't get a lot of time for them. Right. So comparing the UCAT to the old test, the UMAT, make a slight comparison here, and there's all these other comparisons I'll do later on in the video. But one major comparison between UMAT and UCAT is the speed in which UCAT is operating at. So the old test, the UMAT, and by the way, just a little plug, besides the timing and the format, UMAT was a physical test, UCAT is a computerized test, and besides the difference in times, which I'll be talking about really shortly, the questions themselves are actually really, really, really different, meaning that the techniques to solve UMAT questions, frankly, don't transfer to UCAT. So if anyone's told you anything other than that, it means they really don't know UCAT very well. And if I was you, I'll stay away from any resources that are UMAT derived or anyone who teaches UCAT like UMAT because that will not work well for you, as a lot of unfortunate students discovered last year. But anyways, going back to the second challenge, it's the time in which you have to actually perform or execute the actual skills. So the UMAT was 3 hours, 134 questions. It's still about evidence-based decision making. That's pretty much the only similarity there. So 3 hours, 134 questions. UCAT, on the other hand, is 2 hours, so that's normally a good thing, because it's shorter. But instead of having less questions, you have 233 questions instead of 134. So 99 more questions and an hour less. So that's kind of crazy, because what you end up getting is way less time on average per question for the UCAT than the UMAT. So much so, in fact, that if we did a bit of math, for the UMAT, you had around 80.6 seconds per question, right? Because in UMAT, 134 questions, 3 hours across 3 sections, you can do whatever question, whatever order you want to. In UCAT, you can't jump between sections. You have to go from section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, And you can't, well, you can technically jump ahead without finishing all the time you have for each of the sections, but you won't get that extra time for the next section anyway. It's just automatically disappears. So there's no good reason to jump around the sections. At its worst, right, section 4 of the UCAT, you only have 14.2 seconds to do a question. So comparing 80.6 to 14.2, that is something like, if you do the math again, 17.6% of the time to do a UCAT question compared to the UMAT one. And UMAT was already known to be a test that was difficult to, finish and do correctly. So I'd like to make this really quick analogy in terms of, what the challenge is with respect to how you should overcome it with mindful preparation. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like I'm at home and I'm cooking. My wife wants me to cook, and I cook, and it's a dish that I haven't tried before. So I take my time, right? Because I'm learning it from scratch. I go onto YouTube, learn the steps, the skills, and then I slowly get the recipe, together, ingredients in place, kind of like a little chemistry experiment, but, cooking. And then, I do what I need to do, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6. Okay, I go through it really, really carefully. At the end of the day, I cook a good dish. So, says my wife, and it looks good, it tastes good, fantastic. So that whole process of actually cooking it, from step 1 to whatever number of steps we took, let's say it took 100 minutes, right? 100 minutes. So now my wife says, "Hey, Michael, such a good, dish. Can you cook it again tomorrow?" But because our schedule is really packed tomorrow, and I want you to cook it for myself and also some of my friends who are going to come over. Okay. You only have, instead of 100 minutes, you only have 17.6 minutes now, right? 17.6 is the percentage of how much time you get for section 4 of the UCAT on average per question compared to the average UMAT question. So now I've got, instead of 100 minutes, 17.6. So that's the other challenge, to actually still cook an equally presentable and tasty dish in 17.6 minutes. So how do you go from 100 to 17.6? Well, the idea really comes down to you being so refined in the execution of your recipe, or in the case of UCAT, your technique, that there is minimal procrastination time. Like you just know instantly what to do, and you don't make any mistakes, because mistakes not only cost time, because for the time you took to make a mistake, it's not worth anything, right? And you have to actually take time to fix a mistake. It doesn't add up. So really, at the end of the day, it's kind of like trying to cook a dish at your home, at your own leisure, and then going to MasterChef, right? And in MasterChef, they always cook the craziest dishes in the most unrealistic amount of time. And I guess that's how you assess whether someone's truly good at skill, to give you less time to pull off a better result, even. Okay, and for students who are able to actually accomplish that, they do obviously much, much, much better than people who can't. And that, at the end of the day, reflects how familiar you are with the skill set, and both knowing what it is and how it can be applied. So these two challenges, the actual skill set, okay, and learning it and finding it and like realizing what it is, versus the conditions that you'll be using them, and that you really don't have much time at all, and that any degree of, I guess, flustering, okay, will get you to be really put off, okay, with how you're able to do this. And you can see in MasterChef, people get flustered all the time. But in this case, for the UCAT, in 2 hours, you get, I guess, have to make or do 233 dishes. So those are the two main challenges. But the other main challenge is how to also go from basically where you're right now, okay, to being MasterChef UCAT level. All right. So we can have a quick look at this particular diagram. This diagram, okay, is by a psychologist called Abraham Maslow. Okay, so Abraham Maslow is a very well-known psychologist, and he focuses on competencies in terms of its ability, well, in terms of building it, and specifically the stages of the development and the awareness that is associated with the person trying to develop these particular competencies in the form of skills. So on the very bottom in red, okay, you can see that it's talking about being unconsciously incompetent. So what does that mean? It means that you don't even know you're bad at the skill. So that's usually when people don't even, have a go at a question for UCAT, and they think, oh yeah, it'll be all right. Okay, that's kind of what you get with people who are at that level of unconscious incompetence. They don't even know they're bad at it yet. So then you move up one, and the next level talks about conscious incompetence, which means you know you're not very good at it, and that's probably because you gave a UCAT question a go. So many of you guys may have already given the UCAT question a go, and that's why you're going through this resource page. But you realize that, yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world, okay? And it's actually really, really hard. And a lot of times people do quite a few questions, and they realize the more they do, like, they're not getting necessarily much better, okay? So that's where you're at. So that's like the next level of consciousness, but you're still incompetent. Then you move up to the green layer. So the green layer focuses on conscious competence. That is when you now have acquired this very specific skill sets that I've mentioned as part of the first challenge. And now you actually have a system of which you're applying to the questions you're answering, and you're getting consistent results in improvements in accuracy and speed. Why accuracy and speed? Well, if you get a process or technique that actually works, you're going to get the right answer. And why are you going to get faster naturally? Well, it's because you don't make mistakes and you don't procrastinate, because you actually have a process to think back to and know what to do. If you didn't go into questions, which we'll talk about in another video, a very, very big misconception about how practice really works for UCAT. If you don't actually practice with the technique, you're not really practicing anything. And that's why people get really slow and, as well as being inaccurate and inconsistent in, the speed and correctness of their response. Anyways, the point is this: conscious competence is therefore developed over time as you get more and more familiar with consciously applying a correct process of solving questions. And then finally you get to this blue level on the very pinnacle, of the pyramid, that focuses on being unconsciously competent. So we're not saying that you're not thinking about it at all, because that's obviously not possible. You'll be sleeping. But we're talking about the fact that it's such a second nature process to you already, due to the fact that you refined it through and through and through and through, that the moment that you see that UCAT question, you know instantly what to do. It's like having baked that cake 100 times. You can do it in your sleep. That's what people are talking about. So how do we go from the very bottom level, right, unconscious incompetence, to the best level on the very top, the unconscious competence? How do we go from there to there? Well, that's the challenge in itself. But at the end of the day, why do we need to reach the unconscious competence level? Well, that is because UCAT demands it. Or rather, you demand yourself to get the best marks, 99th percentile, and therefore you require yourself, if you really want to have the best chance of getting into medical school or dental school, to be at that unconscious competence level, because that's what you get. That's where you need to be if you want to get the 99th percentile. You need to be that good, right? You need to be that good. You can't just kind of get it. You got to be that good at it. So that's when the other challenge that comes with all this is actually how we get there. So in this particular video, we talked more about the superficial general challenges that people face. Hopefully I've kind of explained them to you in a way that is more practical. But later on, we will be talking more about specifically how you should be preparing so that you are effective and efficient in developing the necessary skills, right? So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.